The reason you're here is because when I was grounding as a student in internal medicine, I always felt, wouldn't it be great if I could sit down and have a cup of coffee with the chair and just have a nice conversation about career options or how people got interested in medicine, that sort of thing. So this is not a lecture. This is not a presentation. This is a discussion. Okay? Now, over time, I have asked people to kind of tell me what they want to talk about, and then what I hear is silence for about 15 minutes. So it's pretty much become, since I got here in 2009 and 2010, it's become sort of a conversation about the difference between practice and academic medicine. We don't have to discuss that. But I've sort of used that as an opportunity, since we don't spend a lot of time doing that. I do believe it's one of the most important decisions you'll ever make. But before that, you probably have also heard that Jesse Roman asked you to say your name, where you're from, and where you're going to be 20 years from now. So let's start right here. Oh, let me say one final thing. Jason is back there recording. So I hesitated to say something because then people become very rigid. You start seeing how people eat pizza on the camera versus off camera. It's a very interesting difference. We have felt that the discussions that we've been having here are really pretty cool. There's a lot of stuff that is discussed here that it's discussed in an environment that people feel comfortable asking a lot of questions in. And Jason thought, why don't we have this video? The last video he did I didn't like, so we're doing it again. We may not like it, but it's a way for us to get comfortable with this concept. And so don't worry about the camera. Don't look at the camera. Just practice nothing of it. Name, where you're from, and where you're going to be 20 years from now.
My name is Lacey Gunn, and I'm from Indiana, small town. And in 20 years, I will be seeing patients in an academic setting so I can do clinical research that will help even more patients.
Any particular area?
I'm interested in pediatrics, maybe family medicine.
Okay.
My name is Will Wilson. I'm from Henderson, Kentucky. And in 20 years, I want to be in Kentucky, or at least very close by, probably working in radiology. Maybe in an academic setting, maybe not. Just depends what job is available.
Okay.
I'm Jeff Kenner. I'm from Hinesville, Kentucky. 20 years, probably somewhere around Hinesville, Kentucky. Also from radiology.
2 radiologists. In the 4 years I've been here, I've never had 2 radiologists in this room, and both sitting together.
My name is Courtney George. I'm from Itabena, Mississippi. In 20 years, I might be OBGYN doing some research on
On the side, okay.
I'm Franklin Benton. I'm from Montego Bay, Jamaica. In 20 years, I'll probably be, right now, it might change, but an OBGYN in an academic setting, hopefully New York.
Hopefully New York, okay. Not Jamaica.
No.
I'm Sarah Hawkins. I'm from Louisville. Hopefully in 20 years I will be a pediatrician, hopefully in intensive care, and I'll be working in Latin America.
In Latin America, pediatrician intensive care, I like that. Go ahead.
I'm Miriam Greenstein. I'm from Massachusetts, and hopefully in 20 years I will be back in Boston practicing as a urologist. Let's say I'm going to get MPH, but up north in an academic setting.
It's sort of interesting. I have a niece who's at MGH doing urology.
Really?
Yep.
Can I be her?
I'm Emily Heyman. I'm from Louisville, and I'm also an aspiring radiologist. And I'm undecided region.
Okay. How about you?
I'm Lindsay Flagg. I'm originally from Louisville, and I'm pretty set on pediatrics right now. I want to do some subspecialty, hopefully. I'll figure that out in 20 years.
20 years.
You said, what are you going to be doing in 20 years? I don't
Gretchen Kissel. I moved here from New York. In 20 years, I'm not sure where I want to end up, but I'd like to be doing something in pediatrics and doing some sort of child abuse medicine.
Okay.
My name is Frida Perotin. I'm from Lexington, Kentucky. In 20 years, I want to be a child neurologist. I've always wanted, and I would like to do some work in pediatrics.
Okay.
And
Richard.
I'm Jenny, I'm from here, and in 20 years, I was probably thinking about doing neurology at a big center where I can teach students. And so far, I'm really interested in stroke, but I don't know if I can do something else.
Okay. I know you, but introduce yourself anyway.
My name's Genevieve. I'm originally from Georgia, the south of Atlanta. In 20 years, I'm hoping to be doing pediatric surgery in some academic setting, close to places where I can be outdoors. But more than anything, I'm hoping to have groups of students, like in Africa, occasionally doing surgery for people.
Okay. Yes, sir. You.
My name is Richard Gibson, and I'm from Manchester, Kentucky. And the only thing that I know is that in 20 years I'll be in the future.
It's a good guess.
Kelsey Lamb, in 20 years. Hopefully I'll have my own psychiatry private practice.
I'm Emily Stupi. I was born in Tucson, Arizona, but I've been here a while now. And I'm hoping to go into probably pathology.
Pathology? Okay.
I'm Allie Black. I'm originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but have lived in Louisville for a while. I'm hoping to do some sort of pediatrics, and right now I'm thinking pediatric cardiology.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jessica Huber. I grew up for the most part in Glasgow, Kentucky. I'm interested in OBGYN, and in 20 years, I think I'd like to be practicing at an academic institution and maybe developing some kind of administrative career.
Okay.
My name is Hassan Siddiqui. I'm from Elizabethtown and here in Kentucky. And in 20 years, hopefully I'll also be doing radiology.
My name is Ahmad Jaffer. I'm from Paintsville, Kentucky. And hopefully in 20 years, maybe doing pulmonary critical care back in Eastern Kentucky as well.
You'll be doing what, I'm sorry?
Pulmonary critical care in Eastern Kentucky.
In Eastern Kentucky, okay. I can't see the person next to you. There he is.
My name is Matt Bewley. I'm from Louisville, and I'm interested in psychiatry, and hopefully in 20 years I'll be doing that, and I'm looking forward to exploring the different types of psychiatry.
Okay.
I'm Jen Moody. I'm mostly from Louisville. In 20 years, I probably want to be living somewhere in New England doing physical medicine and rehab.
Physical medicine and rehab. Okay.
My name's Ravinda. I'm from New York, and I'm not sure what I'll be doing. I'm currently having some career lust for vascular surgery, but we'll see.
Career lust. Surgery. Okay.
20 years from now, I hope I'm
Make sure you change the camera towards her a little bit. Where?
Probably back in the East Coast.
Okay.
I'm Hannah Cooper-Camp. I'm from New York too, and in 20 years I hope I'll be doing family practice in a clinic in New York.
Okay. Who have I missed? Have we not missed anybody? It's always exciting to see how many people, I mean, if you think about it, you could populate a medical center with most of you, because you're all thinking different things, different areas, different parts of the country, you have different goals, different interests. It's not my intention to push you to know where you're going to be. You're students. You're going to be exposed to many experiences for the next few years, and your mind will change. But if you do not think about what the options you should identify or look for, you will miss them. If you do not make choices about what you think you want to become, we will turn you into something. And we may miss the highest potential in another area. You won't know because you'll be happy. And so one of the things that I discussed during this session is really career goals. And because the future is so important, and because where you end up 20 years from now, it's pretty much decided in the next 2 or 3 years, believe it or not. then you need to start thinking about that. Many of you know most of what you need to know to make decisions about where you want to be, what you want to do, and if you want to be close to family or not. Think about it. You know if you want to have or you have a spouse or a partner. You know that. You know or you should know with how much debt you're going to end up at the end of your training. You know that. You know where your family lives and you want to know if you want to be close or not. You know that. So you have the 3 out of the top 5, no? The other 2 are really much based on experience and how things will change over time. And of course, the things that you can't predict. So it is important to begin to think about these choices because where you go to residency and then where you go to fellowship, the longer you prolong your decision, the more difficult it is to reach what you really anticipated you wanted to do. And to me, the most important decision you need to be thinking about is whether you want to be in academia or private practice. It is the most important decision you will make over the next few years is whether you're going to be in academia or private practice. How many of you have heard that stated like this before? You have, okay? How many of you have thought about that choice, seriously thought about the choice of academia versus private practice? Raise your hands high because I can't see it by the video. Almost everybody. But almost nobody told me academia. Some of you did, but some of you kind of hesitated in telling me academia or private practice. Some of you did, some of you did not, and so forth. I don't know. I usually push academic medicine in this presentation. Let me explain why. And I want to explain why, because in the past when I used to give this presentation, people would say, well, wait a minute, Dr. Roman just think everything has to be academic. No. One of the things that makes exciting healthcare in the United States is the fact that we have these 2 systems, academic medicine and private practice. You cannot have an academic center in every town. And you need an academic center because that's where we train. That's where we generate new science, new discoveries. But we can't deliver medicine to the masses from an academic center. We have certain populations that we treat, but we can't be in Paducah, and we can't be in East Kentucky, and we gotta need people there, okay? And so private practice provides that, provides an opportunity to deliver good medicine everywhere. If we didn't have good strength or strong private practice in academia, this system would not be the best in the world. And it is, no matter what they tell you, no matter how much expensive it is very expensive. It is somewhat inefficient. I recommend for you to look at the most recent Time magazine. Very interesting, very interesting. But the fact of the matter is we need good people to be in private practice, and we need good people to stay in academia. The majority of you will end up in private practice. The majority of you will end up in private practice no matter what I do, no matter what I say. So because the majority will end up in private practice, I take it as my responsibility to ensure that at least a few of you stay in academia. Why? Because I want one of you to sit at this table talking to the students 20 years from now. I think that's an important goal. Somebody's got to do the discovery. Somebody's got to do the education and the training. So academia is very important because that's the most important part of that in addition to patient care. Does that make sense? So tell me who can verbalize the difference between academia and private practice. It's a question I love to ask.
Money.
Money. She says money. Okay. Give me something else.
Students.
Whether you have students or not. So you didn't qualify where the money would be. Huh?
Well, traditionally, I think we're told that private practice can afford people more money. However, in academic medicine, you don't make as much, but
Okay.
overhead.
And then in academia, you see more students. What else?
Patient population difference.
Patient population different in what way?
A lot of the patients in academia are the indigent population that don't have insurance, where people with insurance might go to private practice physicians.
Okay. And that is because many places where people train are often state and university hospitals, and it's our mission to ensure that those patients are taken care of, because private practitioners cannot, okay, or want, or for sometimes financial issues. I mean, it's not easy. What else?
Research.
Research. Tell me about it.
Typically, research is associated with academic institutions, private practice, not as much.
Okay, okay. What else? I'm sorry?
In a number of patients seen because the academic centers, you might see during following entire weeks not devoted to clinical practice of seeing patients. You might be devoted some bigger way from time programs.
Okay, okay. You were going to say something?
Just within the patient population in an academic setting, you probably see more of the rare conditions.
Mm-hmm.
More variety of diets.
Okay, okay. Anything else? That table
You're
has not said a
probably-
word.
Sure. So you're probably more likely to have, in some ways, I want to use the word comprehensive care because you have so many teams that are closely affiliated, can contact, you can get a consult, whereas if you're in private practice, unless you're in a large private practice that has multiple subspecialties, time to do something, to get a consult, to get an answer back is very different than what it is in a hospital.
Interesting. What else?
I guess in academia, you'd be more likely to work in a hospital.
More likely to work in a hospital, okay. What else? Well, I'm sorry.
Some days you sick of patients.
You see sicker patients, maybe. Well, let's dissect each one of these, okay? Because some of these have a lot of truth, and others are misconceptions, and others is a matter of degree, okay? So you're going to have to help me remember each one. Let's start with you. Money. It is interesting that private practitioners earn more than academicians. There's no question about it. But that gap begins to narrow as time goes by. As you move on into, as you are promoted and become more senior in academic medicine, that gap between money and private practice and academia starts narrowing a little bit. But it could be quite different. And some people ask me, well, how much? Well, in some places it could be $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $100,000, $20,000. It depends. It depends on the need that is out there, who's paying, and so forth. But it could be significant. So if you have tremendous amount of debt, and it has to be taken care of, it is something you have to think about. What I tell most people is that I've been in academia all my life. I've never been in private practice, so I can't tell you what that is, although I have a lot of friends and colleagues who are in private practice, okay? I've never felt I didn't have enough money to live well. Never. I don't know any academician who's not part of the flexible 1%. Flexible because it's not quite, that changes, okay? But physicians have worked very hard and live well if they are academia and private practice. They earn less in academia, mainly, but you will live well. And so then becomes the question of, and I think this is very important, because if you equalize the academic model versus private practice, then you choose the one that has the more money, no? If they are equal, you choose the one that has more money. And what I'm here to tell you is that they're not equal. Your opportunities for reaching your highest potential is not the same in academia and private practice, period. Your ability to reach your highest potential is not the same. And so you have to balance those things when you start thinking about money. Okay? You were raising your hand? Yes.
You can also switch back and forth, or is it that kind of hard to switch between private practice and...
Good question. Good question. So let me answer him and then I'll answer you. It is, I tell people, if you're uncertain, stay in academia, because you can always leave it. Coming back, it's very difficult. For two reasons. Number one, you lose track of the pace of being a good educator or a good researcher or being in mission-based patient care, that sort of thing. But also, if there is a big gap in your earnings, coming back may mean changing your lifestyle again. You get used to certain things, no? And since you may not want to pay that much taxes, then you buy a bigger house, and then you get sort of surrounded with those things that limit you for movement. Okay? It is not, people say, they always tell me, well, I'll do private practice, and after a while I'll come back. It ain't that. Now, I'm going to make a number of statements today that are very black and white. You know that there's nothing that clean. I'm going to make the statement black and white so that to make a point. But everything is, there's a lot of exceptions. I mean, Frank Parker is our internist that you may meet in the next few weeks, who was in private practice until last year when I recruited him back here. So it does happen, no, but it's difficult to do. Now she said, can you have both? What does it mean to have both? What would you like to have? How would you blend it?
Well, the only blending I could say is that I've worked with some plastic surgeons who have their academic community, their population who may not be insured, and they'll do their surgeries here. But then they'll also have an office, say, out by the Summit, where they're seeing their private patients and doing more cosmetic type procedures. And so, how does that work?
Okay, so I will tell you that I do my inpatient care at the VA, and I do my outpatient practice at the ACOC, seeing insured patients. Do I have both? Or am I in academia? Or where am I?
Well, I'd say you're definitely in academia, but how much of your private practice patients, like that money that you get, has to go in academia? I mean, is there like something to do with your contract?
What I'm saying is that you can see any kind of patients you want in academic medicine. Okay? And you can be a full-time clinician in academic medicine, or you can be a clinician educator, or you can be a clinician investigator, or you can be a physician scientist. So you can resemble a private practitioner in academia, but you're in salary. No? You have a salary. You may have incentive pay or bonus on top of that, but you have a salary. Whereas in private practice, unless you're in a partnership or you're owned by a hospital or whatever, which can also give you a salary, you control a little bit of that. Right? But your exposure may be exactly the same. Your exposure may be exactly the same in academia. And that is an interesting thing that I see in people, the misconception about private practice. In private practice, I can control all of that. Well, in academia, you do too. Yeah? So we'll get much more to that as you listen more to this. You talked about students. Many people say, I'll do private practice and then I'll have some students. That doesn't happen much. We have some people who take some time off and volunteer time in the clinics. My brother-in-law is a neurologist in Puerto Rico who takes Fridays off, and sometimes he gives presentations at the medical school and so forth. But it is rare and it's not much. And if you're in a group and you're in a partnership, that is the amount of time that you're not paid for. So your group may or may not want that. I mean, you have to help the partnership sustain the nurses and the secretaries and all that kind of thing. So it's very difficult as a private practitioner to engage in meaningful education. Not that you cannot, but to be consistently recognized as an educator and become really good at educating. I mean, we all can teach, but you all have had teachers and teachers, no? And the same thing, you all have seen doctors and doctors. So it's very difficult to become an educator as a private practitioner. And it's more likely than not that you will not be able to be exposed significantly to students. Somebody said research. You have to do research in academia. No. Who's your role model in academia? Who's your role model today?
Your attendings.
Huh?
Your attendings.
Who's your role model? Do you have one that you particularly like?
I like Dr. Christensen right now. I'm on Dr.
Christensen, yeah.
I'm on ID right now. She's really like, she teaches a lot.
Okay,
She's very efficient.
Give me another name. Well, give me another one by one. You're being videoed.
Dr. Perry.
Dr. Perry? Who's Dr. Perry?
He's a child neurologist.
Child neurologist, okay. Dr. Amy Holthauser. Amy comes up very often in these meetings, okay? Dr. Fallon. Who else?
Dr. Feller. Dr. Feller.
Okay.
Brad Feller.
Okay. Who else?
Dr. Petruska.
Where is she?
She's an OBGYN.
Okay. Now, how many of those that you mentioned are researchers? Huh?
We don't know if she does research.
Some of them are, some of them are not. Okay. Amy, for example, is not a researcher. Okay. And my point is that in academia, you have opportunity to develop as a researcher or as an educator, or as a heavy-duty, high-level scholar, clinician scholar. You have those opportunities. It is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to have the opportunities to develop in those three areas in private practice. And I mean that. Yours is a generation that has, that feels that has all these opportunities available to you. So it's very difficult to commit, no? You have at your fingertips an iPhone. I do too. Okay? And you have the world, and you don't want to commit, no? Whereas the previous generations were sacrificed, they committed early on, they saved money. There's a big gap between generations, no? But we got to learn from each other. The importance about the statement I just made is because very often students, and I interview all the students from UofL who want to go into internal medicine, often tell me, I don't want to commit because I want to keep my options open. That's what they say. I want to keep my options open. And yet, when I tell them, do you realize that when you go into private practice, you have actually narrowed to 1/3 your options? It's inconsistency with your philosophy of life, which I find interesting in some of you. Okay? That there's, I want to keep my options open, but I'm choosing private practice, which actually narrows your options. Okay? Now again, you may be the top private doctor, I may be your patient. I'm not saying that that's a good or wrong decision. What I'm pushing today is that it should be an informed decision. That I see too many people going into private practice or academia without thinking about it, without considering the consequences to you and to your family, without questioning yourself, why am I doing this for? Where does this will put me? Where will this take me 20 years from now? That's the question. And the reason why that's important for you to ask that now is because you will never ask about that later, and you won't never know what could have been, and you will be happy. You will be happy to both sides. And I will be equally proud as long as you try to be your best, whatever you decide to do. Doesn't matter to me what you decide to do, but you better try to be your best, okay? But you'll never know. What if? What if? That's why you have to ask these questions. So let's go through. Again, we talked about money. The gap is there, but not too much. You don't have to be a researcher, but it's an opportunity in academia to do hardcore, heavy-duty research. In education, it's mainly, many of the reasons why many people stay in academia is that opportunity to continue to educate people. But not just educate students, but educate patients, educate family, be a community advocate, which you can do as a private practitioner, but also it becomes difficult as well. Somebody said something else back there. There was somebody who talked about comprehensive care. I want to focus on that because one of the things I tell students about academia is that academia is much easier to engage. I prefer to call it mission-based care. Mission-based care. We have a mission, we deliver. We need resources to ensure those missions are delivered. But the focus is not on generating dollars. The focus is on accomplishing the mission. What is the mission of this university? Do you know? What is the stated mission of this university? Well, but it's a very comprehensive mission. It talks about education, it talks about patient care, it talks about a lot of things, no? And complex organizations have complex missions. So when I make a decision as a chair to recruit someone, it may be somebody who I know is not going to make much money at all. But that person fulfills a mission that I think it's important for this organization to fulfill. And an academic institution provides opportunities for you to find resources elsewhere to be able to accomplish that mission. You have those opportunities. So who pays me for being with you today? How much money do I generate for being with you for 1 hour? 0. And yet this institution demands that I spend time with you. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Because it's part of our mission. No? So when I go to my clinic, it's because I have to be a good doctor. I just came from my laboratory this morning. We spent 2 hours talking about research and basic science and so forth. Part of my mission is to generate new knowledge. And then tomorrow I'll give a lecture. That's part of my mission too. And I have clinic tomorrow afternoon. And I'll be in the morning answering phone calls from a teleconference to review NIH grants in the morning tomorrow. All of those I consider my mission. My institution wants it to be my mission. Some people have different kinds of mission. But that's the beauty of academic medicine, where you can have all this group of components of the larger mission. And that's what makes this academia, to me, an exciting place to be. And within that process, you can be different things over time. So within that place, I've seen physician scientists who become clinician educators. I've seen clinician educators who become clinician investigators. I've seen clinician investigators who become administrators in a hospital. And that is all possible within an organization like this. Not that it's impossible in practice, but very, very, very difficult. I can't emphasize that enough. And yet, it could be extremely fulfilling for people in practice. And they do an important job. So again, I'm not putting one down or the other. I'm defining the differences. So when you make the decision, you make it for the right reasons. It's your choice. What else did I hear before? What did you say? The patient population, because we're mission-based and because we engage in research, very often we see some of the top sickest patients. My clinic often sees people who we've seen by 2 or 3 pulmonologists before they get to me. I treat a disease called idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, 50% mortality within 3 years, no FDA approved treatment. And so they often have seen a primary doctor and a cardiologist because it's the heart, and then they do a stress test and it's okay, and then they see a pulmonologist, and finally they say, well, go to Jesse Roman, and we discover that's what they have, and we consider experimental trials and that sort of thing. So, but for me to do that job, I need to have a rheumatologist next door. Why? Because many interstitial fibrotic lung disorders are related to connective tissue disorders. And I need to have a very strong cardiothoracic surgeon because often I need an open lung biopsy. And I need good transplant people because sometimes all I have to offer is a new lung. No? And I need to have good cardiologists because these people, I need to make sure that they're okay doing this. And I need to have researchers because I'm engaging in clinical trials. So I need a biostatistician and I need a research coordinator. No? I need all of that so that I can deliver the best care to this one patient who comes in with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. So that one patient has all the access in the world of all potential options that that patient can have. And only here you can get that in Kentucky. Only here you can get that in Kentucky because of all the expense of all these things that are required. Academia allows you to develop those types of programs. Does this make sense? Questions, comments, concerns, rebuttals, challenges? Yes?
So you have a lab?
Yes.
You do basic science research. And that's one of my area. But I was wondering how you balance that and seeing patients and being chair of a department and all these other responsibilities. Do you have any tips for that, or?
It takes a lot of work. Well, 2 things I will say. Number 1, many of you have told me, not you, but in other meetings, that you may work harder in academia because you see the attendings running around. That's not true. Many of my partners in practice will tell me they're extremely busy. And here in academia, at least I have my colleagues who can cover for me when I'm sitting with you. So that's not the case. But what academia allows you is to work at the pace you want to work. So I can't sit around. I'm not a guy who sits around. I did my day, and I'm comfortable with that. I saw 5 patients, and that's good. And so I decided to expand what I did. But before you do that, you really have to make sure you have strong training that allows you to do that. So what's the foundation? You have to be a good physician. Every one of you, if you do nothing else, you better be a terrific doctor. You better be caring. You better want to help someone else. And you better not be here because of money. You need to be paid fairly. I want you to be paid fairly. But there are many other things you could have done if money was the key issue, no? So make sure that you're good physicians. And that's this stage where you're in. You're developing that foundation. Then the next step is to decide if you want to be a researcher or an educator, to start looking into who are those people who could be my mentors to kind of get me there. They've been through this. They know what to do. There is no book that tells you how to get there. It does not exist. But there are a lot of people who have gone through it, who understand it, who care about you, who want other people to emulate that. So finding a mentor is very important. Okay? Number 3, research and patient care even though many people feel that it's the same, they really require different skills. Some complementary, some not. And you better be well trained to do research. You're exposing the life of a person, if you're going to do clinical research, to some experimental drug. You better be a good doctor, but you also better know how to do research. And these days, there's a lot of issues about compliance, ethics, HIPAA training, all these issues. As a researcher, you have to know them all. You have to understand them all. So there is a need for further training. So just because you, train as a pediatrician, or as a pulmonary critical care, or as a cardiologist, doesn't turn you into a clinical investigator. And no more than it turns you into a clinician educator. You have to continue to develop those skills. So I went into the laboratory in 1987, and I found a terrific mentor. I didn't even want to go into his lab. I wasn't quite sure. He pulled me in, because he pulled me in. And I loved it. And after a while, he said, I think you like this. And I said, yes. And he said, then if you like this, you're going to be competing with researchers out there who that's all they do for a living. And if you're going to do that, you need to stay in the lab 3 to 4 years. This is beyond my medicine, residency, fellowship training. And I took that. And I'm going to earn less than everybody else while I'm training for a long period of time. But when I finished, I was ready to run my own laboratory. No? I was ready to engage in animal work. I didn't know all techniques possible, that's impossible, but I understood how to get there, or how to get people who teach me how to do it. And that's what you need to learn. What is the foundational skills that you need to have so that when you get to that thing that you don't understand, you know how to get there. So my suggestion to you is continue to do what you're doing, focus on the foundation, which is being a damn good doctor. Begin to think about what your future will be. You said research, and if that's the case, start thinking about in what area, start thinking about mentors. And then follow that through and recognize that it's going to take you longer than anybody else in this room, unless they want to be researchers. You have to accept delayed gratification, because it's going to take you longer. But you then will develop the skills to not only do patient care and education, but also engage in discovery. So you could potentially become a triple threat. Who loves baseball here? What's a triple threat? Bat? Forgot. Bats, catches, runs, no? So a triple threat in academia is somebody who does good research, who's a good clinician, and is a good educator. Recognizing that you won't have 100% of the time to do it all. There is no way that I could carry the patient load that a practitioner carries or that a clinician carries in academia. If I'm going to spend an hour with you, I'm going to spend 2 hours in the laboratory, I'm going to do this, or in administration. There is no way. So at some point, you have to begin to decide, there are some, I love it all, but there are some things that if I continue all at the same intensity, I will never accomplish much at any. And I have to choose a route so that I really transform something. What I want you to think about is that all of you have the capacity to transform medicine. Being a doctor is not enough. You guys, if you're smart enough, if you don't faint seeing blood, and you like hard work, you can be a doctor. I'm being facetious. I'm exaggerating a little bit. But what I'm saying is, I'm not looking for doctors anymore. There's a lot of people out there knocking on the door who have good grades, who want to be doctors. I'm not looking for doctors. I'm looking for people who are using medicine to transform the world. That sounds like a big cliche, no? But that's what we're looking for. People who are going to change medicine. People who are going to change healthcare. People who are going to tackle the issues of overpayment for tablets in the hospital. People are going to discover the next stem cell that can go into the brain, and so we no longer need neurologists. Not that I want to put you out of business, because we cure neurology disease. So when you start thinking about it that way, then you start saying, oh my God, an MD next to my name is not just a way to get a living. It's an opportunity to change the world. That's an incredible opportunity. And so you then begin to think about this ahead of time, so that you say, okay, this will get me to becoming a good doctor, but what will get me into becoming a scholar, an educator, a discoverer? I've been to Congress several times. That's fun. I serve on committees at the national organizations. That is exciting. I want to do it all. And those opportunities I've had because I've been willing to sacrifice. I've been willing to accept that gap in money. And if you're patient and persevering, you get there. Not everybody wants that. People want, there are others who want, I want to do patients all the time. I love patient care. That's what I want to do. I want to be able to control how much comes through the door. I want to be able to control everything that I do. I think private practice is better. I want to go to East Kentucky. There is no academic center down there. But that's where we need good doctors. I want to do that. I want to be the best I can. I'm going to serve that community. I'm going to change how that community works. That's important. That's important. I always make the story of a physician who came to me because she wanted to become she wanted to focus and develop a program on breastfeeding. Okay? I see a lot of your faces. I had the same one. Breastfeeding. Okay? And I said, so tell me more. And she begins to explain. And she says, you know, breastfeeding is crucial. I mean, we all know that. I had 2 daughters. They were breastfed. I think they're healthier because of that. She said, and she went through the percentages of kids who are not breastfed and why. And the problems that we have in cultural problems, financial issues that prevent mothers from breastfeeding, health issues that prevent, and she had become an expert on that. And had become sort of the state consultant for that kind of thing. And she was ready to move it into a strong national academic and educational program. But in her practice, she couldn't move it further. She was too constrained because it wasn't mission-driven care. And you know what? I offered this woman a job. Because even though I didn't know how to pay her, and she was going to lose a lot of money from me, I thought that was an important part of the mission of this organization. Does that begin to explain to you academia, mission-based education, that sort of thing? It's not that one is better than the other, but there are differences. The opportunities are differences. The ability to reach your highest potential is different. And let's face it, being a professor versus a doctor, there is a difference. There is a difference. So when you think about money, think about it for the right reason, not because it's an equal choice. It is not equal. Questions? Comments? Rebuttals? Challenges? Okay, here we go.
What's your wife like? Is she in the...
What's my wife like? You
Well, I know, I'm just saying, as far as
my wife?
spousal support.
Okay, so, spousal support. My wife is a chairwoman of medicine. Everything I've done is because of my wife. So when we met, I pulled her away from Puerto Rico. All my family is in Puerto Rico. Her family is in Puerto Rico. And I promised her I would get her back to Puerto Rico in 3 years after my training. That was some 20, 30 years ago. And at some point we had to make a decision. We sat down. That is something you need to begin to do as well. All the choices you make have implications for the rest of your life. Your family will live with this, with these decisions, no? And one of the questions was, if I wanted to go back to Puerto Rico, I would not have the ability to engage in academia the way I could engage in the United States. It was just not possible. And she didn't blink. She said, do what you need to do. I'm supportive all the way. Let's do it. And from Washington University, I moved for my first faculty job at Emory University. And then 18 years there, I was there. Then I became division director there. And about 4 years ago, I came here. It becomes tougher once you have a kid and uprooting your family. I mean, and that's why you have a partner or a spouse, no? So that they ground you and they, it's not all about work and it's not all about reaching your highest potential. It's about part of your highest potential is to being the best family member and father that you can, brother or sister, whatever you can. And so those things you have to put them together. But I will tell you that, and she understood this, that if I couldn't do what I do, I couldn't be a great dad or husband. Because you got to be happy. You can't make others happy without being happy. So find what makes you happy. That could be in private practice. That could be in academia. That could be as a CEO of a hospital. That could be in industry. By the way, we haven't even discussed that possibility. All these options are available to you. That the world is your oyster, no? But find what's happy, what makes you exciting. Find something that really has a true altruistic ultimate goal, where you can look back 20 years from now and say, this exists because I was there. You like It's a Wonderful Life? My favorite movie. My kids are tired of seeing it because we see it every Christmas, okay? It's about going 20 years from now and saying, what have I done? All these blessings that I've gotten, what have I done with all that? What have I done with the sacrifice of my wife and my family? Was it worth it for her to be away from her mother, who lost her husband, her father, recently? Was it worth it for my daughters to live away from their grandparents? What have I done to warrant that special treatment? That drives me every day to work hard, to make sure that I was worth that sacrifice. Because people are sacrificing as we speak for you to make it where you are. You know that. Parents, family, money issues, all these things. There's a sacrifice investment in you, and you got to give it back in the best way you can by finding your best way. We're almost at the end here. Any questions? Does this make sense? Is this too overbearing? Am I giving you too much information? Does it matter? Are you going to start thinking about this? You're going to start looking for mentors? Starting asking, don't ask Jesse Roman. By the way, if you ask 10 doctors who sit in this room, they will give you different versions. That's important. No? At some point, you want to become your own doctor. You're not always going to be Amy Holthouse or Jesse Roman or whatever. You're going to develop your own style. You're going to develop, you know, I see doctors all the time, and even the students, they tackle a patient in a very different way. It's their own style, and it's all good. No, but you will be yourself at some point. Once you get that foundation, you will develop your own style. And that's good. It's all going to get there. You're all smart enough to get it. So don't worry about whether you're going to make it or not. Worry about whether you can guide it to where you want it to be. You're going to make it, whatever that is. Worry about how you drive it to where you want it. That's the key point. Enjoy the rest of the day. Have fun.
Thank you.
Say goodbye to the camera again. Thank you. Where are you guys going next?